3 things were found at the scene: a shallow depression pressed into the damp soil beneath a hosta leaf, a scatter of small, glossy black droppings, no larger than a grain of rice, and a single witness, you, standing very still, because something in the corner of your eye just blinked. You did not invite this creature. You did not place it here. And yet, the evidence suggests it has been living in your garden for weeks, possibly months, possibly longer than you have owned the house. Open the file. We have a case. The suspect is small, squat, roughly the size of a clenched fist. Its skin is dry and pebbled, a mosaic of olive, copper, and dark brown that disappears against bark and stone with almost unsettling precision. Its eyes are golden, horizontally pupilled, and unnervingly still. It does not flee when you approach. It does not posture. It simply lowers itself another half-inch into the soil and waits, betting that you will not see it. Most of the time, it wins that bet. You have probably been told the suspect is dirty, that it gives warts, that it is a nuisance, or at best a curiosity for children. None of this is part of the actual file. What you are looking at is a member of the order Anura, a true toad of the family Buffonidae, and the closer we look, the less the popular story holds together. Note the calmness. Note the location. Note that of all the gardens on your street, it chose yours. Here is the fact that doesn't fit. Toads are among the most environmentally fragile vertebrates on the planet. Their skin is not a barrier, it is a sieve, permeable to water, to gases, to dissolved chemistry of every kind. A single concentrated dose of common lawn pesticide can kill an adult toad within hours. Trace levels of synthetic fertilizer, repeated over weeks, are enough to suppress reproduction entirely. And yet, this animal, this exquisitely vulnerable animal, walked across your property, surveyed it, and decided to stay. That decision should be impossible in a modern suburban landscape. According to the IUCN Red List, over 40% of amphibian species are currently threatened with extinction, the highest proportion of any vertebrate class on Earth. The contradiction at the heart of this case is simple. The creature in your garden belongs to the most rapidly disappearing group of land animals alive today. So why is it here? And what does its presence actually mean? The popular story says a toad in the garden is lucky. Folklore, a pleasant accident. The evidence tells a different story. A toad does not choose habitat the way a bird or a mammal does. It does not weigh aesthetics. It does not consider scenery. Its survival depends on a narrow, measurable set of environmental conditions, and it tests each of them with its own body before committing. Soil moisture, ambient humidity, insect density, shelter availability, chemical contamination. Each of these variables registers directly through the skin, the nostrils, the tongue, the cloaca. In other words, before you ever noticed the toad had already conducted a survey of your land that no laboratory in the world can fully replicate, and it passed your land. That is the case we are building. Not luck. A verdict quietly issued in your favor. Let us examine the exhibits. Exhibit A. The skin. Begin with the body itself. A toad's skin contains millions of mucus and granular glands, and beneath them, a dense network of capillaries that conduct what physiologists call cutaneous respiration. Up to 40% of the oxygen a toad uses enters not through its lungs, but directly through its skin. The same surface absorbs water from damp soil and dew. Toads do not drink with their mouths. They drink with their bellies, through a specialized region called the seat patch. Note what this means. Every molecule in your soil is, in effect, sampled by this animal continuously. Its presence is not an opinion. It is a chemical reading. Exhibit B. The sensitivity. Cross-reference this with global research. The United States Geological Survey, through its Amphibian Research and Monitoring Initiative, has tracked amphibian decline for over 2 decades and consistently identifies toads and frogs as sentinel species, the first to vanish when soil and water chemistry shift. In agricultural watersheds where atrazine and glyphosate accumulate, amphibian malformation rates have been recorded at 3 to 5 times the natural background. The animal in your garden is, by definition, a witness that found nothing worth fleeing from. Exhibit C. The diet. Observe the stomach. Stomach content analyses of common toads, Bufo bufo in Europe, Anaxyrus americanus in North America, show diets composed of slugs, beetles, ants, spiders, earwigs, sow-bugs, cutworms, and the soft-bodied caterpillars that strip seedling leaves. A single adult toad has been documented consuming up to 10,000 invertebrates over the course of a active season. 10,000, quietly, without invoice. Exhibit D. The timing. Note when it works. A toad is crepuscular and nocturnal, emerging in the hours when most garden pests are also active, and when most birds have stopped hunting. Its visual system contains rod cells so dense that it can distinguish moving prey at light levels measured in fractions of a lux, roughly the brightness of a clear, moonless night. Cross-reference this with your own absence. The toad is on duty in exactly the hours you are not. Exhibit E. The tongue. Pause on the mechanism. High-speed video research from Brown University, published in 2014 in the Journal of Experimental Biology, demonstrated that a toad's tongue strike is one of the fastest predatory movements among terrestrial vertebrates, extending and retrieving prey in roughly 70 milliseconds. The tongue itself is coated in a saliva that liquefies on impact, then thickens again to trap the prey, a non-Newtonian fluid mechanism that engineers have studied as a model for soft robotics. The creature in your garden carries technology we are still trying to imitate. Exhibit F. The memory. Observe loyalty. Telemetry studies of toads in the United Kingdom and Germany have repeatedly documented site fidelity. The same individuals returning to the same hibernation sites, the same breeding ponds, sometimes the same single stone, year after year. Some toads have been recaptured at the exact location of their original tagging more than a decade later. The animal you found this week may have been visiting your garden since before you planted the rosebush. Exhibit G. The refuge. And finally, the wider pattern. A 2011 review in the journal Biological Conservation concluded that in heavily developed regions of Europe, private gardens collectively constitute one of the largest remaining habitats for amphibians, in some cases supporting more breeding populations than designated nature reserves. Your garden, in the eyes of this animal, is not a backyard. It is a wildlife corridor in a landscape that has otherwise become hostile to its kind. Each exhibit on its own is interesting. Stacked together, they are damning. The toad is not a guest. The toad is a verdict. When I first connected these dots, I genuinely sat back in my chair. I had grown up being told that toads were lucky, a folk belief, pleasant, harmless, slightly superstitious. I had never paused to ask why almost every gardening tradition in Europe, in Japan, in pre-Columbian Mesoamerica had independently arrived at the same belief. The luck wasn't the toad. The luck was what the toad's presence proved, that the soil was alive, the water was clean, the insect web was intact, and a long, fragile chain of biological relationships had survived everything modern living tends to do to a piece of ground. Our ancestors did not have laboratories. They had pattern recognition across generations. They noticed that the gardens with toads thrived, and the gardens without them eventually failed. They didn't know why. They just trusted the sign. It turns out the sign was a peer-reviewed instrument all along. We just stopped reading it. So here is the verdict on the record. The toad in your garden is not a coincidence. It is not folklore. It is not a charming accident of suburban life. It is a biological audit conducted in silence on your behalf by a 200-million-year-old lineage of animals that survived the extinction of the dinosaurs and now stands as the most reliable bioindicator science has ever identified. Its presence is a statement issued without paperwork that your soil is uncontaminated enough, your water is clean enough, your insect populations are diverse enough, and your shelter is structurally adequate enough to sustain a species that almost half the world is currently losing. That is what it means when a toad chooses your garden, not luck. Confirmation. If you want to honor that verdict, the actions are small and almost embarrassingly simple. Leave a corner unmowed. Slide a broken terracotta pot on its side beneath a shrub. Set a shallow saucer of water at ground level, with a flat stone inside it so the toad can climb out. And above all, retire the synthetic sprays. The toad has already told you they were never necessary. What's your verdict? Tell me in the comments. And if you've ever found the same toad in the same spot, year after year, I want the full story. The longest-running case files always come from people who simply paid attention. Case closed. But there's another file on my desk. And this one involves a creature most people only ever see as a smear on a window pane. A creature that, for reasons no one suspected until very recently, may be navigating your garden using the polarization of moonlight.